Well, I'm with our editorial and expert team here from PV Tech, and we just spent the first day at Intersolar Europe 2015. So just wanted to recap in a little round table here that what's been going on. So I know there's been some more developments on the Solar World EU anti-dumping, so what's going on there?
It seems as if every Solar World have something up their sleeve regarding the ongoing saga between the EU and China over the dumping issue. Today's bit of news was that Solar World is going to quit as a member of the organisation formerly known as EPIR, now known as Solar Power Europe, the trade association for Europe. A couple of months ago, having remained pretty neutral throughout the whole trade issue, EPIR, as was, came out and said that it was going to impose any trade tariffs on Chinese imports into Europe, which obviously Solar World took exception to. It's taken them a couple of months, but they finally announced today that they're going to leave. So that happened this morning in a press conference, and so they're quitting the association forthwith. And interestingly, Milan Nitschke, their Solar World's president, was sort of suggesting that the organisation that Solar World started, EU ProSun, which was set up really with one issue in mind, which was to take the trade case to the European Commission. He's now suggesting that EU ProSun could be an alternative trade body for the European solar industry. It has 30 members. We don't know who they are because they've always remained anonymous. They've never wanted to identify themselves as being supporters of ProSun, which in itself is interesting. But it seems that ProSun are now bidding for a little more legitimacy than they've perhaps had hitherto by saying that they're going to have a wider remit than just the trade issue. Milan listed a number of kind of broader issues that he said ProSun would now be lobbying on other than just the trade issue. So off the top of my head, I can't quite remember, stuff around technology, more sort of general issues.
Mark and I, we went to SNEC in Shanghai 2 months ago, funnily enough, and there was then EPIR up on stage essentially saying to the Chinese, please come, rejoin our association. We need your support to lobby government effectively.
He did address that issue. He said we'd hoped that after EPIR, as was, had made this announcement, we would still have enough of sort of enough common issues between us that we'd be able to kind of stay in bed with each other. But ultimately, it seems as though, having reflected on that, they've decided that's not the case, and that EPIR, or Solar Power Europe as they're now known, is so kind of focused on this issue around trade and taking a very strong stance on it that they
don't. Do you get a sense about MIP going, staying? I mean, Milan obviously would like to see it extended. I assume EPIR's stance is now.
Well, I mean the biggest development, EPIR wants rid of it. Solar Power Europe wants rid of it. But if anything, ProSun stroke Solar World seem to be upping the ante on it even more. We heard just last week that they're extending. They're now dragging Malaysia and Taiwan into the mix. Apparently, Chinese companies have been so-called trans-shipping product through those countries into Europe so that they can evade duties. So ProSun, in fact, it's Solar World acting on its own on this occasion, have registered a complaint with the Commission, who responded. As we know, they're launching an investigation into that. They've also told us that it could go much wider than that. They've already suggested India could be dragged into it. So, the suggestion is very much that this is something that's just going to keep on rolling until who knows what.
Was there another movement on PV glass as well?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, there's anti-dumping on glass that's hovering there. Obviously, America had the aluminum extrusions for the frames. You know, it was a side issue to the original anti-dumping. I mean, this is obviously something that's just not going away anytime soon. But I wanted to ask David, because you worked extensively in the UK with the trade associations.
Yeah.
I mean, what does this really mean? You know, EPIA at least seemed to have, had involved most people, and now there's going to be a rival thing start. I mean, what does this?
Do you know what? I think this is kind of a further trend of associations, and someone's going to shoot me somewhere in the world for this, but becoming less relevant. Because on one hand, you've got a lot of associations like in China, they want to create a big global association, yet they can't even work out how to work together between them. And I was scratching my head out there and trying to think, well, how on earth are you going to fund, execute and run a global solar trade association when in, say, a small market like the UK, where we're from, we do a lot of work. And yes, I was involved with the REA for many years and a bunch of lobbying there. We couldn't even get the 3 solar associations to merge. And we worked so hard to do it. Yeah. We felt we had the best and proper mandate, but the bottom line is there's too much vested interest, and the industry doesn't really work together. We talk about it a lot, but practicality is a completely different thing. Everyone's got vested interest. We keep on seeing it. I mean, and I'd really like to see. I mean, I haven't spent much time over with the storage guys, but I did walk around. I think I must have seen 3 or 4 storage associations I've never seen.
Really?
Just brands and logos. I'm like, well, here we go again. You know, it's like, well, let's just jump on this one.
I mean, it's a nascent industry, you know, it's in its infancy, you know, however you look at, well, obviously not storage, we've had batteries for years and years, but in terms of, you know, the larger applications of it as part of a distributed network or even a centralised network, really, you know. And so you've got, obviously, guys who are looking out for the interests of the upstream and the actual battery developers, or battery manufacturers rather, so people like Eurobat, and then you've got people whose job's kind of more on the advocacy side of you know, getting deployment to really be enabled kind of thing, you know. And I think that kind of goes for when you get outside the trade associations and into the companies that are kind of working with batteries, that value chain is still very much in development, you know. So I think one of the things that really keeps coming back to in some of the discussions I've had on storage today and some of the conference sessions that I was able to sit in on, is that battery companies across the board are looking for different partnerships, looking for different kinds of, you know, some of them will be looking for power electronics companies to partner up with, some of them will be looking to vertically integrate their own production so that they've got more of their own power electronics in-house. You know, they're kind of looking now to utilities, which from a solar point of view, you know, it's a complicated question, but in some parts of the US, for example, utilities have been, shall we say, a little bit slow. Yeah. No, I don't want to say on the uptake because that makes them sound silly, but there's different nuances to the levels of competition, really, aren't there? You know, and it seems like the storage guys are trying to involve as many of the stakeholders from as early a point in their industry's development as possible. You know, so talking to Panasonic today, they've started a trial in Australia, which is them partnering with 3 utility companies. You know, so they're kind of looking to build scale and kind of look at working with the companies that really got a stake in as many aspects of the electricity, not just business, but electricity systems as possible.
Can I ask, because you know, obviously we know this is a nascent add-on to solar, but are we still genuinely at that inform and educate, and literally you need pilot projects because everyone's got to really understand that's everybody's stakeholders what on earth energy storage is going to do, what effect it has, how useful it really is, what are its fundamental costs, strengths, weaknesses. Are we really just going to see a lot more of those kind of announcements?
Big question, fair enough. It goes market by market. So, you know, this morning we were talking about large-scale applications for storage, and, you know, there's frequency regulation market, which is balancing the grid. Everyone's talking about PJM, you know, which is a service area transmission network operator. Someone in the US will probably take exception to my definition a little bit, but, you know, they're not a utility, they're more a wires company, essentially, you know, and they've basically developed a way of. So frequency regulation is traditionally done by thermal generation, and that means that it can be quite wasteful in terms of the amount of time it takes to ramp up a thermal generator. Energy storage can do it within not milliseconds necessarily, but within seconds. And PJM's developed what they call pay for performance basis.
Yeah.
So that's already a competitive window that storage can go in, but that doesn't exist in other markets.
Yeah.
So so it's not an industry in its infancy there. There's multiple megawatt projects going in, and then so you take the hybrid market for off-grid or remote grid stuff. There's already opportunities going ahead in that. We covered the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, have put out a document, road technology roadmap for electricity storage that goes up to 2030, and it's a means of using storage as a flexibility resource to allow for more renewable penetration, essentially. In that they attack a number of different areas, but obviously there's it's a term that they love in the States, low-hanging fruit. Things like the frequency regulation market or the off-grid. Those are things that are already happening. You get to residential storage, it gets a bit tricky, But then there's things that people are starting to do with stuff like residential storage. One thing that I'm starting to get keen on is aggregation. So you take several hundred small storage units and you turn it into essentially a large-scale storage unit that can balance the grid. It's easier to operate from a central utility point of view, and they're moving at different rates in different markets, really. And having said all that, it does seem like there's more of a commercial interest this time around. There's more. I was trying to get to speak with some of the speakers at the conference, and we've had to schedule interviews for maybe a week's time when we got home from the show, because there were people asking them direct questions about, can you help me implement a certain sized energy storage product? And a lot of the time I've been going to these events for about a year and a half now, and a year and a half ago it would have been, can you explain this aspect of it to me? Can you explain that aspect of it?
So we're
now
already
it's what can you deliver? And, essentially how much is it going to be?
You made some good comments to me about the domestic aesthetics of an energy storage system. Let people know what you observed on that side, because I thought this was really interesting.
Well, I haven't been spending as much time looking at the detail of storage, because don't need to, Andy knows it all, so that's great. But from my perspective, I'm building a house back in Australia where I'm living now, and one of the things we're looking at is, when we got the PV system put on, how can we start to use some of these new technologies that I see and live and breathe every day in a practical application. And actually, you walk around the storage hall and there's at least 20 or 30 residential domestic storage offerings plugged in with PV. Some of them well integrated with switches and monitoring and all the rest of it. Some of them just a standalone battery pack. And I was fascinated to see the look and the feel, because what we're talking about here is actually a product that, certainly in my house, would have to be somewhere where you can see it, because we live in a terrace, so you can't just hide it in a big backyard or a shed. And just the myriad of options. And you had certain companies were coming up with these bright colours, which just looked garish, and I hope it was just for the show, but I can't imagine them going anywhere. Others just have the good old steel box, like you would see in an industrial application. I think SolarWatt have got some fantastic thing that looks like Iron Man's body armour on the outside of it. I don't know what market they're going for there. And then there was the kids market, kids storage. You heard it here first. Samsung, though, I thought was actually really impressive. And I don't know if you've had a chance to go and see it, but if you haven't, go check it out tomorrow. But it's actually really boring, because I think what they've done is they've figured out that people don't want a storage device that's going to be bright. They also don't want something that's completely ugly. And they've designed something which basically looks like a Samsung refrigeration or air conditioning unit. It would not look out of place in a domestic home as an appliance. It's nice and thin, it's on the wall.
Oh, right, so it looks like it's something else.
Yeah, it could be a heater.
Other than a battery.
Exactly, and I think that's brilliant. And now I've only just looked at it, I haven't spoken to them about it. Maybe that wasn't their intention. Sorry to their marketeers if they've changed. But honestly, I thought, actually, that's really clever, because they're starting to think about how it integrates into the way people live. And that to me, that's the biggest trend that I've seen emerge across both with storage, but with the solar industry now, is the better players, the ones that are going to win, are the ones that are going to be able to integrate their products and their solutions into an application that fits our lifestyle. You can't retrofit people's lives, so you have to have an application that integrates seamlessly with what we do. Otherwise, uptake is limited. It's limited to early adopters. It's limited by price. It's limited by location. So, you know, I'd really be keen to see if you guys have seen anything so far. I've seen a few integrated offerings, but nothing strikes me as really hitting the market. You know, no sort of Internet of Things type product.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
the
we're
Tesla
moving.
thing is the one I've seen people having their photos taken next to quite extensively
See,
today.
that really surprises me. You know, if someone had said to me even a year ago that people would be excited about standing next to basically a battery and have your photos taken, I would have said,
Yeah,
man.
but hold on, isn't the car in the shot at the same time?
That probably helps.
There's a lot of
you know.
car photos going on.
Yeah.
Well, there's how many cars are over there? Everyone. There's Hyundai's got a car in there we never had. You've got the i8 from BMW. You've got obviously all the Tesla cars and things. You know, it's great. Big boys toys.
Well, I was hoping that we, you know, I could get a drive in the i8.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
I think you can win a weekend with the Tesla Model S on one of the stands actually as well. So,
Says the man who's
yeah.
already entered.
Well, I think you know, to an extent we're as easily impressed by fancy things as anyone else really, I guess. But
So yes, but batteries are made fancy. Who would have thought of that? Next, we might actually get some fancy modules.
The problem is we've had fancy modules. No one bought them. BIPV's been in the market for 10 years.
This could be the problem then.
Funny enough, yeah. I mean, I was talking to a company that's it's a Lithuanian company that's behind a project with the EU called SmartFlex, and as I understand it, their CEO was saying to me, basically, it allows architects designing buildings to basically to design a bespoke PV system with coloured modules, with modules in irregular shapes, all that kind of stuff, you know. And the end point of that at the moment isn't so that an architect can design it, bang, they put up a system, but it gives an architect an idea of what it's like to work with the system. So I mean, the explanation that I was given was, you know, it's kind of, okay, so solar as an energy product is starting to be better understood, but ultimately we want solar to be part of people's lives, you know.